Put on your antlers. It's time for the Manitoba Moose end-of-season roundtable.
We'll be joining Dave Minuk alongside Daniel Fink and Austin Saragusa. We are breaking things down. Good afternoon, Winnipeg. Good afternoon, Manitoba. And good afternoon to all of those joining us, wherever you're joining us on the interweb. This is a special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. We're breaking down the 23-24 season of the Manitoba Moose. Boys, how you doing?
Just well, Dave, and yourself?
Oh, I'm doing great. I mean, we're, as you well know, whenever we do, whether it's the Illegal Curve Hockey Show or the Illegal Curve Post-Game Show, I'm limited to an Illegal Curve Manitoba Minuk Moose Minute. Well, now I've got 2 hours to talk about the Manitoba Moose with you guys. We're going to have GM Craig Heisinger joining us later in the show. Head coach Mark Morrison will be first up, and we'll have a trio of players in Tyrell Bauer, who just completed his second year here in Manitoba. Parker Ford, of course, his first year, and Dylan Anhorn, the most recent signing, because he, of course, signed out of college, and he signed an ATO, and he'll be here for next year on an AHL deal with the Moose. So, guys, just what are your overall thoughts? I mean, it was a long season. It was a good season. It was an interesting season. The Moose went from that woeful January slide of 0-10-1 to somehow clinching a playoff spot. And of course, we know they lost ultimately to the Texas Stars in that play-in series. But maybe what are your takeaways quickly for the initial takeaways, from the season?
Yeah, I guess I'll lead off with it's kind of my second time going through a season with the Moose, where they had a tough first half and managed to be kind of one of the better teams in the AHL in the second half and fight their way back into contention. And this time they were able to pull it off. In 18-19, they weren't able to slide their way into the playoffs, missing by just a couple of points this time around. They obviously do get into the postseason, but unfortunately, rather quickly to the Texas Stars. But you know what? Overall, it saw a lot of growth from a lot of different players, whether they be young guys as rookies and Brad Lambert, or players experiencing kind of breakout seasons like Christian Reichel, who took another step as a player. It was really all throughout the lineup. We got to see that, and that's obviously an exciting part of an AHL campaign.
Spencer, I got to work on my background here. I just got into a new apartment, so I got nothing on the walls. I can't compare to what Dave and Daniel got going on, but just kind of echoing off what Finker said. I mean, it was a big year of learning for a lot of these Moose players. A lot of guys playing in their first, handful of professional games. A lot of guys getting their feet wet with their first, professional experiences in North America as well. So a lot of the learning. But yeah, I mean, you look at how the second half of the season went. The Moose were one of the hottest teams in the entire American Hockey League. It was a lot of fun to be a part of, and a lot of learning experience, which will hopefully continue into that growth next season as well.
Daniel, one of the things I noticed, and one of the things we've talked to players about, is you can always say, well, here's an excuse. We're a young team. But you documented that early in the season. I wasn't aware, of course. That's why we let you do all the stats. But you informed me that when I think we were doing a game together, that this is a very young team. And you could use that as an excuse. Okay, they're young. They're learning how to play pro. Folks just think, okay, you jump from college or you jump from, playing overseas or junior, and it's automatic. Like it's hockey is hockey. There's a big difference. There's a big change from playing, whether one of those three leagues and into the pro hockey ranks, learning how to play, whether it's face-offs. We heard so much about face-offs this year, about what these guys learned. So from your perspective, from a young group, how much learning did you see from this group of young players, whether they're Jets prospects or guys they've signed out of college?
Yeah, I mean, face-offs are a good place to start even. The development, when you see that this team started out with really a whole pile of rookies down the middle of the ice, whether it was Brad Lambert and Chaz Lucius and more, like Danny Zhilkin for another. And when you look at that, that's an area of the game where even the veterans can stand to improve. And when you look at the strides that players made, and whether that's getting stronger, getting smarter, knowing the tricks of the trade a little better, you could see those strides. And for the Moose, I mean, you saw it a lot in their defensive zone, right? To the beginning of the season, the Moose goaltenders were under siege a little bit as the Moose kind of figured themselves out in their own zone. They could get down the ice and score just fine, especially on the power play early in the campaign, but really struggled in their own end. So they were able to kind of sort through that as the season went on and take major strides along the way in that regard. So you kind of see those areas of growth. And once you start to get to the American Hockey League and then NHL level, some of those can be so incremental. It's just, they talk about the little things all the time. What are the little things? And it's these momentary decisions that in the grand scheme of a hockey season don't seem that large, but you start to pile them up against each other. And it's the difference between wins and losses and hosting playoff games and not hosting playoff games or being out altogether. So those are the important things that players have picked up through the season and that we saw the Moose improve on.
Austin, one of the things, I mean, you're around this team every single day. You saw this group grow together. One of the things we've talked about since the bubble, really, and that's actually when we started doing this show, when we wanted to kind of capture, the most unique season of my hockey coverage, which is 13 years now, 9 seasons, of course, covering the Manitoba Moose since they returned to Winnipeg. But we started doing this show, like I said, to kind of encapsulate what had taken place because so few people kind of saw it. And one of the biggest kind of takeaways from that season was this idea of inclusivity, and it's continued. And we talked about it with Jeff Malott, and he's become such a leader on this team. But from your perspective, seeing all these guys, what did you see from that sort of that inclusivity? How they brought in all those young Jets prospects, and like I said, college players.
Yeah, I mean, it's still that same tight room energy that we kind of felt in that COVID year. I mean, Jeff Malott kind of really touched on it in his year-end interview, but it's still fronted by guys who were here in that time. The Jimmy Olneys, the Ashton Sotner, and he was here for a little bit of time as well. Some of those older guys who have that pro experience. And it started with maybe some of those guys that aren't here anymore. Maybe Cole Meyer, Johnny Kovacevic are 2 guys that kind of come to mind as well. And in setting that foundation and setting that sort of tone to, if you're a Manitoba Moose, you're going to be welcome here. There is no sort of, this side of the room, that side of the room. You're all here pulling on the same rope and playing on the same team. So, yeah, no, it was great. I mean, to see all those guys, a lot of new guys, like I said, getting into their first pro years can be intimidating, can be kind of, weird getting into your first professional locker rooms. But that leadership core of the Manitoba Moose was strong and still, like I said, eager as ever to welcome guys into that locker room here in Winnipeg. And it was great to sort of see that continue this season as well.
And an unusual one in the sense that for the second year in a row, they're missing their captain, which is often the face of the franchise. And I know that Jimmy Olney was with the group for a lot of the season, but a lot of times he wasn't on the road. And yet this team still continued to thrive. And that, to me, Daniel, is one of those things that you take note of, right? The fact that you didn't have your captain, but it didn't seem like there was a fall off. There was enough guys in the room who kind of maintained that culture. So when Jimmy wasn't around, they were kind of able to kind of keep things rolling in the right direction.
Sorry, I got to unmute myself. And when you're missing your captain, I mean, that's an important voice that's not in the locker room necessarily for game situations. And I think going through kind of those early parts of the season, the coaching staff would talk about how team would give up a goal in an opportune moment, and that would kind of compound, and then it became 2, and then maybe 3 goals in a short amount of time. But we started to see that going through the adversity that the team did, they kind of learned to deal with that and kind of became unflappable by the end of the season. Is things they give up maybe a couple of goals in the first period and weren't too worried about it. They'd come back in the second and chip away and then complete the comeback in the third and turned into one of the better comeback teams in the American Hockey League. So that leadership certainly was tough to miss. And it was great to see Jimmy get out on the road for the postseason in that last road trip and to get back on the ice with his teammates for practice. But certainly that's an important voice the past 2 seasons that's been missing from the room kind of on game night.
Yeah. And like we said, there were so many other voices who were able to kind of step up and play a role. And whether it was Jeffrey VL or Kyle Capobianco. Anyways, let's talk about one of the biggest voices in the room, or not necessarily always in the room, but on the bench at least. That's head coach Mark Morrison. Hey, Mark, how are you?
Good. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Well, we're just kind of doing a little bit of a quick recap here of the 23-24 season. So maybe now that you've had a bit of time since the end of season, since the season ended in Texas, what are your kind of takeaways from your campaign here in Manitoba?
Well, I mean, it was a different season, that's for sure. There was a lot of ups and downs and learning along the way. Started off with a young group of new players, first-year players in important positions, really, like right down the center ice slot. We had 3 first-year guys and 1 second year. So it was a lot of teaching going on there. I mean, all new systems for these new guys that came in. So I think the coaching staff, did a tremendous job in the time that we had to teach them all new systems, basically the first year guys anyways, like Lambert, Chibrikov and Zilkin and Luchas, and those guys all had to learn how to play D-zone coverage, and that's the D-zone coverage that the Jets play. It's not easy. There's some switches and things like that you have to communicate and talk over and get used to playing it. The only real way to do it is through experience, really, to get good at it. So, that was hard. Once we got control of that, I thought we started to become a better team. But again, there was a lot of things for the first year players to learn. And I thought that our veteran core did a great job with them and helping them along the way. We had, some constants with Jeff Malott playing with Brad Lambert for the whole season, and did a tremendous job there with him. And Brad did a good job by himself, but Jeff certainly helped him along the way. And we had those situations throughout the lineup, with CJ playing with Chaz Luchas and helping him along the way, and Toninato with Chibrikov, and so. Our veteran group did a tremendous job.
And I wanted to ask you, Mark, about that relationship. I mean, you were able to park Lambert and Malott together for pretty much the entire season. So where do you get the value out of having those young players that are performing in those key roles, playing with a guy consistently and one who's going to occupy a key role for your team for a few years?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important for the development of those players that they build a relationship with someone on their line. They know how it's easier for them to break into the league and play when they get a chance to learn who they're playing with, and where they might place pucks. Just some of the things that they consistently do, and they build a bit of a relationship with each other, and whether it's on the ice or on the bench or off the ice. And, I think all those relationships with our veterans matched up with some of the rookies or the first year players, prospects, you might call them. They all did a tremendous job there. And, those are the kind of people that our management team signs, and we're lucky for that. But I do think it's an important fact. Important for those players to have that consistent winger, consistent centerman or D partner that lets them be vocal with each other and learn from each other.
Well, what can you say about some of the learning experiences some of these guys have had this year? I mean, obviously, no one wants to go through that losing streak you guys had at the midway point of the season. So what sort of learning experiences could you have from that? And maybe also some of the playoff games as well. For some of these guys, it would have been their first professional playoff games and experiences as well. So what can you say about maybe some of the learning experiences that these players will take heading into their years next year?
Well, I mean, as tough as it is to come to the dressing room losing 11 games in a row, there are learning experiences from there. You learn that how to become a good teammate for sure. It's very easy when things are going bad to start pointing fingers, and that's something we didn't put up with. We didn't let it happen. There was a lot of meetings and a lot of talks about, how you get out of that. And so I think they realized and learned from it that the only way to get out is to continue to play as a team, and togetherness will get you out of it. But going solo and on your own show does not help you get out of it. So being a good teammate, being a tight group is something that helps you get out of that. And they became a better team for it. When you're losing games, your work ethic and practice is harder. Everything you do has a little bit more intensity to it. So, at the end, when we came out of the losing streak, we were a better team because we had practiced harder. We had played harder. Our D-zone coverage got better because we knew it had to. It's just a lot of things that we got better at because of the 11-game losing streak. Now, that doesn't mean you want to go on a losing streak all the time, but we certainly did take positives out of it.
This is Moose head coach Mark Morrison joining us here on a special edition of Illegal Curve Hockey as we break down the 23-24 season. Mark, one of the things that I find interesting is when players join you at the end of the season and the impact that you see as an organization from those things. They may only be with you for a week or two in the 2023 first rounder. Colby Barlow joined you this year. Connor Levis joined you. You had Dylan Anhorn, who of course signed an ATO and now is going to be with you next year. But what value do you as an organization see from them in terms of what you're able to kind of see what you'll have next year or in the coming years, and also from being able to kind of share with them that wisdom for their summers and kind of give them an idea as to what they're going to work on after, like I said, whether it's coming from the NCAA or coming from junior?
Yeah, I can't stress how important that is for those players to get a brief glimpse of how the league is and what the coaching staff is like, what their teammates might be looking like the staff is like. First of all, number one, it's when they come back, it's more of a comfort level. Like they know the trainers, they know the equipment managers, they know the coaches, they know everyone that surrounds them, by their first name. And it just makes it more comfortable for them to come into a situation at training camp to try to show their best. The second thing that's hugely important about all that is the league that they come from is so different than the league here. And you talk to all these players at the end of the season that come here and they're like, whoa, that was hard. That was fast. That was physical. The players are stronger. The systems have to be dead on or going to get scored against. Like it's not very forgiving. It's like you make a mistake, it's in the back of your net. All these things that the players learn from their 2 or 3 games or just maybe a half a dozen practices, super important for them to go back now. They have the summer to think about it, the summer to prepare, know where they have to get better when they're on the ice. It's the benefits from it are huge.
And maybe just one quick one, Daniel. I'm just going to add one more thing on from Barlow. Do you get a little excitement when you see that slap shot on the power play and what you might be able to get out of it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we saw, the slap shot was huge. He can shoot the puck. We saw that in practice as well as games. I think it was nice for him to get to his first American Hockey League goal and break that ice right away. But he does lots of other things too that are good. And he also at the end of the season knew some stuff that he had to work on. So, we found out something from him, that he's a very good self-analyzer of his game and very smart on knowing what he has to work on himself. So that's always a great sign.
Now you got me debating which question I want to ask here, branching off of that answer. But we'll go to the postseason. I mean, 2 playoff games against the Texas Stars. What did you see from those games? And as you look forward to next season, I mean, what can you as a coaching staff maybe look at for this team coming up? Obviously tough right now. You don't know exactly who's going to be on that roster, but to find that next year and get over the hump here going into the postseason.
Well, the postseason, as we know, is a different animal, and we have no real excuses for it. It's a funny thing that we went there and we played them 2 hockey games, league games before we started the playoffs, and we won them both, and they weren't easy hockey games. But we, as much as we talked about it after those 2 games going into playoffs, that they were going to be a better hockey team. They were going to come out a little bit hungrier or a lot hungrier, and we had to match that. But as much as you want to talk about that, sometimes it just doesn't resonate with them, and I thought the first game that we played against them, I thought that Texas upped their level of play, and we didn't. So is that on coaches? Yeah, that's on coaches. Like we needed to do a better job to get our group ready for that, the increase in intensity in that game. And we didn't get that done. And, some of it's on the players and some of it's on the coaching staff. We needed to do a better job. Second game we came out and, unfortunately it was a best of 3 series. I thought we outplayed them in the second game and should have won that hockey game, but it's playoffs and they got a hot goalie and that's the way it goes. But the first game of that series for me is that's the one you look back on and go, geez, what could we have done different? How could we have helped them prepare better? But, it's funny because, I think it happens with lots of teams where, we're used to playing these back-to-back scenarios here in Manitoba, and we win the first game or you lose the first game, you're better the second game. You win the first game, you're not as good. It's something that we'll probably strive for next year, is try to put together back-to-back wins, because it's important.
Mo, Dave kind of talked about players making their first AHL debuts, but I want you to take me through what it was like to tell Brad Lambert and Nikita Chibrikov that they'd be making their NHL debuts. What was that sort of whole day like? Sort of take us behind the curtain of what it was like in Milwaukee when you got to tell those two guys that they're making their NHL debuts, and then sort of what was the atmosphere like when they got back after such a successful first night with the Jets?
Yeah, I mean, it was great to be able to tell them. They worked hard all year, and we all know what their goals are, and the goals of a lot of players that we have. But it's we all know how important it is to them, and those are special moments when you get to tell them. I think the biggest special moment for me, and I related this on to Zinger and Chevy after it happened, was the dressing room, how the dressing room responded to them walking out of my office and telling the guys that they were going up to play their first game. To me, that was one of the signs that show we have a team here, and they all cheer for each other and like each other. And it's one of the things we promote with the Moose is, the foundation here is to be a good teammate. And we definitely saw everybody in the dressing room happy for them and giving them hugs. And it's a special moment for them. And, it looked like it was a special moment for the whole team that had helped them get there. And they won't forget that.
Just to jump off of Austin's question, Mark, the improvement from Brad Lambert, you had him for the 14 games last year. He goes to Seattle, has a real good season in junior. They decide to move him up the middle, which is where he tells us he's more comfortable. It's where he likes to play. Again, but it's one thing to play it at a junior level. It's another thing to get to that NHL, to the AHL, the pro game, and have to play as center. And as you said, it was easier with Jeff Malott playing kind of alongside him. He had other good, strong wingers. But from your perspective, the growth in Brad Lambert, we saw it from a stats perspective. I mean, he ran up the Moose rookie all-time list in terms of his points, his goals, his assists. But from something a coach watches, the defensive side of the game, the faceoffs. What did you see in terms of growth from when he started the season to the end?
Well, a lot. The very first thing I saw was his training camp here with us, with the Moose, and his first couple practices. I realized that he was a different player from what we had the year before. His willing to learn and listen. The details of the D zone. He knew there was more important things to the game than just all about offense. His willingness to work hard in practice and look after the details. Just, and I've said this before about Brad, one thing that he improved for is because of his attitude. So that's what he came with. He came with a great attitude. He wanted to learn. He wanted to listen, and therefore his D zone coverage got better. His play through the neutral zone, using his teammates, got better. Distributing the puck, playing a smart hockey game, and not just all about going end to end by himself. So Brad learned a ton, but I say to this day he learned a ton, but most of it was on him. He came with the right attitude and wanted to learn and wanted to listen. And if he continues that attitude, which I don't see why he won't, we don't know how far he can go.
Mark, over the past few seasons, you've had the opportunity to watch some pretty impressive blue liners, whether it's over the last few years, Ville Heinola or Kyle Capobianco this season, or Declan Chisholm, Leon Gavanka, Johnny Kovacevic, Dylan Samberg. The list goes on and on. So just wanted to get your thoughts, maybe even ranging beyond this season, what it's been like to work with some of those players and see them kind of move on to have success in the National Hockey League or gain league recognition like Kyle did this season with his Eddie Shore Award.
Well, it's been great. I mean, I think our puck control from all those players has great. It's been real good where they can, skate us out of trouble, I guess is a good term. They control the play. Our defense has been most of our offense for the last 3 years that I've been here anyway. And the power play, for example, has flourished. I think we were in the top 5 again this year, and because of those guys, they handle the puck well. And the big thing for having those defensemen for me, not so much, I guess, the previous 2, but certainly for this year, was just being able to feed our forwards, like feed your forwards. If you can't feed them the puck to get them going, then it's hard to not only hard to win, but it's hard to develop players if you can't get them the puck. And that's one thing, with all those guys you just mentioned, and even the guys you don't mention, like Sotner, like our defense have done a great job of getting us out of the D zone and feeding our forwards to let them have a chance to move up ice and develop. Like, if in that 11 game losing streak, I think in the first 4 or 5 games of that losing streak, we didn't get out of our end, and that's not development. If you can't get the pucks in the hands of those forwards to go, and you're not going to be too successful. And that's what those guys did for us. So I just hope there's some more on the pipeline.
Speaking of development, I mean, what can you say about Thomas Millich's year? Looked over a couple of years in the draft, starts the season in the ECHL, and once he gets that opportunity in your crease, he just didn't seem to really let go of it and kept the reins sort of for the good chunk of the year. What do you think that does for his year going forward too? And then what can you just also, in turn of that, just also say about the work that Drew McIntyre did with him as well? I know him and Drew sort of established a pretty solid relationship, but sort of what can you say about his year and the work he's had with Drew?
Yeah, I think the ECHL is sometimes underused, but I think him going to the ECHL early on, let him play hockey games, played minutes. When he got his opportunity here, he wasn't sitting on the bench. He got his opportunity here. He was, was in full playing mode. Like, he was good to go. He'd played games in the coast, and he came up and did a great job for us. As far as and again, it's all about learning. But he had the right attitude. He came and wanted to learn and wanted to work hard and put the time in. And I think that's where the relationship between him and Drew grew. Like, hard worker. Like, Drew's on the ice all the time, and Milich wanted to be right there. Not that the other goalies didn't, but Thomas just came with the right attitude and worked hard and wanted to compete for the crease every night, and did a good job at it.
Mark, and we'll have to let you go here because we don't want to keep you all day. Appreciate you joining us here at this end of season roundtable. But one of the things that folks tend to forget sometimes is that the AHL is a development league. And so, especially when you see other guys jumping ahead, like Logan Stankoven, Maverick Bourque, they're making it, or Stankoven for sure is making an impact with the Dallas Stars. They want Jets prospects to do the same. And I'm sure those Jets prospects also want to do the same. I'm sure those Jets prospects are also like revving to go. And I remember, you talk to guys and, I understand, like, it makes sense, right? You want to be in the NHL, but how do you as a coaching staff, whether it's I know you don't have to answer to fans and let them know, but just in terms of like counseling, like there's a process to development, and part of that process is the American Hockey League. So whether it's a guy like, all the guys that we've been talking about who are in their first or second year as pro, or even a guy like Ville Heinola, who had to go through, he was, that mental sort of anguish of knowing, hey, I made the Jets. Now I'm going to spend the year trying to recover because of my ankle surgery. So from your perspective, whether it's the players or just that general sort of sense, how do you counsel that?
Well, you're right. There's a process, and the process is different for every player. Some players are physically mature enough to be able to handle it. Some aren't. Some are mentally ready to handle it. Some aren't. So for me, it's all about patience. Is a key word here. Like, you want to make sure they're ready to go, because to go up and down, not a great thing, like, and lose confidence. They're not showing I'm not ready again. I'm not ready again. When they leave the Manitoba Moose, we want them ready to play in the NHL and not get sent back. So I think that at the end of the day, confidence is a huge thing that you can lose when you go too early. They have to be ready. And sometimes one of the things that we struggle with here, and it's because they do want to get there right away. There's a lot of meetings, there's a lot of conversations with guys, that a lot of comparisons that we have to do with other players of their nature, of their stature. Like, it took this guy 3 years in the American Hockey League, and now look, he's a bona fide superstar in the NHL. He's a 30 goal scorer in the NHL. It took him 3 years to get there. Like some guys, like you just mentioned, Stankoven, only took him a year, but that's, those he was obviously ready. So we need to have lots of conversations and lots of communication, and constantly reinforce the fact that you're continually getting better playing in the American Hockey League. It's a good league. You're certainly not wasting your time here. And we continue to have those.
Well, Mark, we could ask you another, hour and a half worth of questions, but Daniel only gave me so much time with you. So what's
Thanks,
up for
Daniel.
What's up for the summer?
Hey, Dave, that's a loaded question. You know darn well what's up for the summer.
Well, I was going to let you say it because I know you got some fishing on the boat, but
yeah, I will do some fishing for sure. And my grandchildren are starting to get old enough to be able to come on the boat. So I'm hoping I can get one of them out there with me anyways to pull up some salmon.
There you go. All right. Well, we appreciate you stopping by and sharing some of your thoughts on the 23-24 season with us here today, Mark.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I appreciate all the coverage that you guys do all year. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. And so have a great summer. We'll talk to you soon. And there he goes. That's head coach Mark Morrison. We'll head to a break and we'll come back. We'll share some thoughts, and then Tyrell Bauer will be joining us. So we won't have long to chit chat, but we'll try as soon as I can send us to commercial break, which is easier said than done, boys, because for some reason I can't find it. There we go. Welcome back to an empty chair for Austin Saragusa. Daniel Fink and I are here. We're keeping this show alive. We just spent some time getting some insight from Moose head coach Mark Morrison. Maybe I'll take Austin out until he's I didn't notice that he wasn't there, Daniel. It was just an inanimate cart. He is shifty. He was gone. But you know what? He might be gone, but you know who's in the chat and he's ready to go? Jets prospect, defenseman, Tyrell Bauer. Oh, hold on. Austin's also ready to join the show. So we got, oh, no, there he is. There we go. So we got everyone.
Unbelievable.
All right. We tried to, I said it was only going to be a couple of minutes for that break, but
we're good.
Tried to stretch it out. Anyways, Tyrell Bauer, how are you, Ty?
Good, Dave. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Finker, Goose, good to see you guys too.
So, well, let's get into it. Your second season here in Manitoba, and what did it mean to you to kind of get it under the belt, become a more relied upon part of this team?
Yeah, good. I had a lot of fun this year. It was a really, really special group of guys, and our season, although it may have lacked consistency at times, I think we banded together and proved what we were capable of doing, and the direction that we could have gone. So it was a great year. I had a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to come back next year.
Ty, spent a lot of time playing with Ashton Sautner this season. So for you, what were you able to learn from him as a veteran guy that's been playing pro hockey for almost a decade now?
Yeah. Me and Sots, we get along all right. We train together in the summer. We both train out of Edge School, from Cochrane or living here now anyway. So a lot to learn from him, not only on the ice, but off the ice for sure, how to be a pro. He's an incredible husband, incredible father, and it's very admirable as a young player coming up, because to me, my whole world revolves around hockey, trying to make the next level, trying to improve, but there's more aspects to life, and he's helped me see that.
Bowes, I'd almost feel like there was more of a leadership role for yourself this year. I know you're only in your second pro year, but with all the young guys that were coming in this year, did you feel almost that there was more responsibility on your shoulders this year to maybe show some guys who are coming up in their first pro years sort of what the game is like and what they can expect going forward here with the Moose?
Right. Yeah. It's a good question. I think potentially. Leadership's it's a funny thing, because some guys are in that position, some guys aren't, but everybody plays a role into it, whether actively or passively. I think what I try to do is just build personal relationships with everybody, really get to know them, get along with them. We're teammates. Like we spend every day around each other. So just getting that familiarity. We want to be playing with each other for a long time. I think that's a super important part of a successful team is how integrated you are and the culture. So I obviously got a really good opportunity to learn from some of the older guys last year, and this year, Jimmy, Jeff, Tony, I could go down the line. They showed me kind of what it takes, and you just try to mimic that culture and pass it down.
Well, Ty, a guy I know you have a lot of time for. You spent a lot of time, whether it's here in Manitoba or over in Seattle. Thomas Milic, he was a huge boost for this team when he was recalled from the ECHL. So two-parter. One, what did you see from him in terms of his growth in his first year as a pro? And secondly, just how excited were you when he saw that he signed his ELC with the Winnipeg Jets and got his first NHL contract?
Yeah, Dave, you hit it on the head. I got a lot of time for Tommy. Always have. Played together, for 3 years there in Seattle. Took us to a championship. He got to win the year after. But no, Tommy's great. I believed in him for a long time. I've seen that in him. I've never once strayed from that. So to see him come in and have that success in a time when we did need it was phenomenal. Seeing him sign that entry-level deal, I'm fortunate enough I've got to play with him, and I'm looking forward to at least the next year and hopefully many more playing in front of him.
And Ty, this season was really characteristic of a team that battled. I mean, you found yourselves in a tough spot midway through the season. You fought your way to get to the postseason. And though you didn't get the result in that second game against Texas, you seem to leave it all out there. So, I mean, looking back on this year and the adversity the team went through, whether it was the losing streak or some of the injuries that the guys dealt with, I mean, what can you take from this year moving forward? What are some of the lessons learned?
Yeah, there were many for sure. Like you said, we never gave up though. We had choice kind of when we were in that slump as a group of what direction we were going to take, and we decided to band together. We had a few meetings. We just thought that we wanted to play for each other. Everybody's got an agenda. Everybody's got things they want to do, but if we're not playing for each other, we're never going to have that success. So number one lesson coming out of it would certainly be never give up, because you don't know what can happen. Keep battling, keep showing that resilience. It's kind of something you always know, or you always think but we had the opportunity to show that. And, we obviously thought we could have gone a little further. It's hard when it's a 3-game set in the playoffs, but that's what got us to that point, is that resiliency and that level of battle and not giving up and believing in one another.
I know you weren't there in Milwaukee when the guys got the call, but what did it mean for you yourself to see guys like Brad Lambert, Nicky Chibrikov get the call up to get their first NHL games? I mean, obviously it's a pretty special moment for those two guys, but for yourself, what did that mean to see those two guys and all the work they put in that season to finally get rewarded and get their first National League games under their belt?
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, that's the phone call everybody's waiting for. So to hear about it, and I sent them both a text after, and Fordo actually got called up too. I was sitting at home. So to see him walk back in the front door, to the apartment when I was injured there, but no, it's incredible. I mean, the guys, they obviously earned it. I mean, you can see what they do on the ice, but what they do off it is fantastic too. They're great individuals to be around, and that's just the start for them. That's just a stepping stone. So I'm excited to see where that takes them.
And Ty, you talk about the development you yourself did from your first year here in Manitoba to now concluding your second. Where do you think your biggest kind of gain was in terms of what you learned this season and how you can apply that to becoming an even better pro next year?
Yeah, just I mean, you never want to say you're comfortable, right? Because you're always pushing forward. You always have goals and organizational needs and all that. But the more you play at a certain level, the more comfortable you do get on the ice. Whether that's with your teammates, whether that's with the coaching staff. That first year is always hard to kind of come in and adjust to the pro life, living on your own, all that. So just having some more stable factors off the ice, and then me feeling more comfortable on the ice, that's building my confidence. And I'm going to try to use that going into next year.
And what sort of area did you feel like your game maybe grew the most about? Is there one area you can sort of maybe pinpoint that where you noticed from, your first game last year to your first game this year that you sort of felt like you sort of excelled and felt yourself growing a bigger way? Just what sort of changes do you notice in your own game this past season compared to last year?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it all kind of steadily, or at least you would hope it all steadily improves, at about the same time. So I don't think I noticed any one area just shooting up the ladder. I think that over time, with that getting comfortable, with getting confidence, with working with the coaches and our skills guys in Doobie to improve the game, the way you read plays gets a lot smoother. So that helps too with, being able to make plays and track plays and break up plays. So I would say that just the IQ portion and just reading the play and being able to adjust and adapt in game, if I had to say something, but I think it's all just slowly going up.
Now, Ty, you're a pretty good fighter in your own right, but did you learn anything from Jeffrey Viel this season? Because he sure seemed to be a little bit fearless when it came to throwing punches.
Yeah, first time I ever met Jeff, actually. I knew who he was, so we bounced a couple ideas off each other. Worked on some stuff on the ice. It's always interesting to see a guy like that because everybody's kind of got their own things, right? They got their own styles and mindsets. So having a guy that you can share that similar experience with and have some backup too on the ice certainly helps. I had a lot of fun with Jeff this year. He's a great guy, and yeah, it helps.
In terms of, now you've had 2 years in Winnipeg. You're not quite a Winnipegger. We're not going to anoint you that just yet, but you're getting more and more comfortable in Manitoba. What is it like for you off the ice? How have you gotten acclimatized? What have you learned about living in this city?
Yeah, well, first thing, the goal is to become a Winnipegger soon. So I want to, if not quite yet, hopefully soon. I love the city. I like snow. I've said that for years. I grew up in Calgary, so that's my season. Winter's my season. The people are friendly. Like me and my roommate Parker, we go to the grocery store, and people are saying hi. The cashier, like we're just shooting it with people. So I really love it in Winnipeg, and I'm excited for year 3.
Yeah, I mean, kind of bouncing off of that, I mean, what's it meant to you to play in Canada? I mean, a good Alberta boy and sticking in Western Canada and being able to play in kind of a hockey mad market like Winnipeg.
Yeah, that Western is a little bit of a stretch, but we're right down the middle.
Central. Anything east of Toronto is west at this point.
Yeah, true. No, I love it. I think. Obviously, being from Canada, like you said, being from a smaller town out west, it's every kid's dream to play in the NHL. I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to play in the Western League, and from there, just take my steps on and get drafted to the NHL and then play minor pro right now. So I am very fortunate to play here. I'm very fortunate to play in Winnipeg, and I'm super excited for the future.
Okay, just a couple more for you, Ty. But number one, what is the plan for the summer? What are you kind of focusing on in terms of your development from after speaking with the management here in Manitoba?
Yeah, we're getting more consistent, working on the puck skills and skating. Not reinventing the wheel. It's stuff that I've known for a long time and I've made strides to try to improve. So we're just going to hammer that on the head and come back ready.
Well, a lot of folks are asking me if you fought Matt Rampy. I'm like, he's his teammate, he's his buddy. They've grown up, they know each other from being Alberta guys. But so I'm not going to ask you fought him because I know you haven't. But in terms of how excited you are to see what he's doing in the NHL.
Yeah, I haven't officially fought him yet, I guess. But no, yeah, me and Matt. I mean, obviously, it's no secret we played junior together. We lived right close to each other. We've sparked a pretty unique and special friendship over the years. So to watch him be able to do what he's doing right now, it just brings a smile to your face. He's one of those guys that you're rooting for. We've been talking about it all the time. He's done it the hard way. He's earned it. Everybody's going to have his opinion on what he's doing, but he put his work boots on and did what he had to do to make it there and stay there. So I'm super proud of him. And, I can't wait till he gets back, because we're going to have a lot to talk about.
All right. Well, we always have a lot to talk about whenever we have you on. We appreciate it always. So thanks a lot for joining us on this Illegal Curve special edition of Moose Roundtable. Thanks, Ty.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for the year, Dave. Appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next year. It's going to be a doozy.
All right.
Thanks,
enjoy
boss.
your summer.
All right. Thanks.
There he goes. That's Tyrell Bauer. Never drop the gloves with Tyrell Bauer. That's one thing we've learned after a couple of seasons here in Manitoba. He knows how to chuck them. So, and look, he's not wrong, right? In terms of that. And I guess that was a question I could have asked him in terms of his hunger, right? Because it's not, obviously his game is a lot more than that. He's big. He's got size. He's on the right side. It's a need for the Winnipeg Jets. So there's going to be an opportunity for someone like Tyrell Bauer. He'll have a good summer of training. And he'll have a shot, just like everybody else who's jumping up to that, looking to jump to the NHL for next season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a guy that, especially when you look at some of these defensemen who are more defensive minded, some of those offensive guys can jump in and that skill is going to take over and they're going to produce. But for some of those defensive guys, when you talk about guys learning those reads, that's such a big part of it. And that takes time. You need to experience it. So guys are going to throw things at you that you haven't seen before, and building up that strength to deal with guys like, say, a Jeffrey VL down low and things like that. That takes time. So it always seems like, whether it's up front, kind of those power forwards, or sometimes a big defensive defenseman like Tyrell Bauer, it requires patience and learning. And you know what? It's been impressive to see the strides that Tyrell's taken over the past couple of seasons. And it's a lot of fun to watch him develop and play his trade.
Austin, anything?
No, I mean, he's like we've seen on the ice and off the ice, a good guy. Like, he's part of that core that we talked about in terms of welcoming guys into the room. He's only been here 2 years, but he's still such an integral part of that dressing room. So again, a great year for him. We're excited to see what he does next year.
Well, we're going to go from one part of Alberta to potentially another part of Alberta, because now we're going to welcome in Dylan Anhorn. Dylan, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Are we safe to assume that you are in Alberta?
I am, yeah, not too far from Ty, actually. He's just just outside of Calgary, and I'm inside the southern part of Calgary, so I might see him over the summer at some point.
All right. Well, we're bringing the Alberta to this special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Roundtable, recapping the 23-24 season for the Manitoba Moose. Now, of course, you weren't with the Manitoba Moose for most of this season. You were at St. Cloud State, finishing off your NCAA career. So maybe share with the folks, you did sign a deal, an ATO with the Moose for the remainder of this season, and of course, a 1-year deal for next season. So from your perspective, maybe, bring people up to date as to who you are and like what your year looked like at St. Cloud State.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I grew up in Calgary here. Played minor hockey for Bow Valley Hockey Association and the Calgary Buffalo Hockey Association, and then went and played my junior hockey in British Columbia with the Prince George Spruce Kings of the BCHL. Started my college career with Union College. Played a season there. We had a COVID cancellation sophomore year, played 0 games. Played again my junior season. Our coach got released, so I ended up entering the transfer portal, transferred to St. Cloud. Last year played with St. Cloud, and then this year as well. And then after the season, got an offer from the Moose. Came to join them for the last couple of weeks of the season, and looking forward to having a full year with them next year.
Dylan, just what's that process like? I mean, folks who aren't in hockey, even someone like me who's in the media, doesn't necessarily know what it looks like from your perspective. So maybe kind of shed some light on that when you're getting, teams are trying to sign you and that sort of thing. And then once they've signed you, what's the process like for you to get from St. Cloud State to Winnipeg? Like, how does that kind of work? And who's helping you along trying to facilitate that?
Yeah, good question. So throughout the season, I'm not really trying to think too much about where I'm trying to sign at the end of the season. So I just want to focus on my performance, getting the most out of myself, give myself the best resume for potential management and teams wanting to sign me. So I kind of leave that to my agent, and he gives me little updates throughout the season, maybe once every month or two, but nothing too crazy. And then I kind of just waited till the season ended for him to update me on all the interests and what was going on. And then we kind of ran our process for a week or two, talking with different teams, assessing options, opportunities. And then once I made my decision, talked with Zinger.
I'm like, wow, Finker, that's an elevated role.
I'd be along the line somewhere in there.
Yeah. No, Craig Eisinger.
Very late.
He helped me with the logistics. I was originally going to fly up, but then realized that it's only about a 6-hour drive from St. Cloud up to Winnipeg. So I decided to do that, which was a good decision. Had my car up there in Winnipeg and was able to drive around some of the other young guys in the hotels. So it worked out pretty well.
And Dylan, as you enter into the American Hockey League, I mean, you're a guy who comes in and technically you'll be a rookie next year, but you come in as 25. You have a little bit more life experience than some of these younger guys that might be in the league. So do you look at yourself as kind of needing to come in and be a leader for this team, despite it being only your first full season in pro?
Yeah, for sure. Good question. When I originally going into college, the plan wasn't to be there 5 years, that's for sure, and then sign after that. But obviously the COVID canceled sophomore year, and my junior year I had a ruptured spleen in my second game, actually, after missing an entire season. So I missed half a season due to that. And then my senior year at St. Cloud, the first one, I broke my foot at the end of January, missed the last 2 months of the season. So kind of injuries and COVID kind of kept me in college a little bit more than I'd hoped. And even in this fifth year, the goal was to sign an NHL contract. That's what I wanted, but I had my eyes set on. But fell just short of that, unfortunately. But it looks like I have a great opportunity here in Winnipeg with the Moose, where talking with Zinger and stuff, there might be a good amount of opportunity on the left side for a puck-moving, offensive-minded, obviously two-way, but leaning offensive type defenseman. So that's kind of been my mindset going into the summer, and just getting excited for that opportunity and training and doing everything I can to make the most of it.
You talk about your time at Union. What can you say about a former Union captain and his influence to sort of get you here to Winnipeg? Just take me through what that story was like and what his sort of influence was to bring you here to Manitoba.
Yeah, definitely. Well, last year, actually, I was talking to some teams after the injury and trying to determine whether I should go pro or go back to college. And I leaned on Cole Meyer, who played for, as you alluded to, played for the Manitoba Moose for a while. He was a really good player there for a good amount of time. And before that, I actually never played with him at Union College, but he was the captain at Union College, where I ended up playing. And the year I committed, he took me on the recruit visit during my official visit. So I kind of got to know him through that, and I was able to ask him some questions about the Manitoba organization and how things are run, and he had nothing but good things to say about it. So he provided me a lot of extra information that helped to make my decision. And based on my 3 weeks there, I think I made a good one.
You know, Dylan, one of the things that folks talk about is the number of games, the difference in terms of how many more games you play as a pro than you do in college. From your perspective, because like I said, you joined for the last 2 games where you played 2 games with the Moose, and you got obviously the one playoff game under your belt. What was your biggest sort of takeaway, now that you've had some time to think about it, from the difference in terms of what you saw as a college player to what you're seeing at the pro level?
Yeah, for sure. I think in the college level, the speed is actually really good, especially the NCHC, the conference we were playing in. So I didn't think the speed in terms of decision-making was a massive jump. It was definitely faster. They were better. Guys were faster. Guys moved the puck quicker. It was crisper. So there was definitely a bit of a jump, but it wasn't something that surprised me, I would say. It's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. I would just say the depth probably of hockey IQ and skill level throughout the lineup, from the top line to the bottom line, is noticeable, where there's threats to get scored on basically essentially every shift because of just how good the players are in terms of the depth throughout the whole league. So I would say maybe that was what I noticed the most. But and in terms of you mentioning a lot more games in pro hockey, which is something I'm really excited for, to be honest. I feel like college hockey, the 30, 40 game schedule leaves you wanting a little bit more. So I'm excited. Obviously in junior, I got a taste of the 70 type game schedule, and we had some pretty good teams in Prince George. We ended up going to the national championships in junior A in Canada, and the BCHL finals the year before. So, and obviously professional is going to be a big jump up, no doubt, but I'm excited to play 70, 80, 90 plus game seasons again. That's for sure. I love hockey. So the more hockey is always a plus.
What did you learn from that brief stint with the Moose at the end of the season? And talking about you noticed the decision making being quicker, but I mean, even off the ice, just dealing with professionals and looking at how they manage themselves at that stage of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I noticed there's a lot more on your own. That you kind of have your own option in terms of in the gym, like what type of stuff you want to do, how you want to warm up, how you want to cool down. Whereas in college, it's really scheduled and kind of outlined for you. So that was a bit of an adjustment, but I work with my trainer pretty close here, and obviously Will, the strength and conditioning coach with Manitoba, is top class. So I'm really excited to be able to kind of apply myself for what I've learned is best for me after being 25 now and having played the game at a high level for a while, and understanding what I need to do to take care of my body and to continue to get stronger and fill out this frame. So those are some of the things I'm excited for, and a couple of the adjustments I noticed from the professional ranks.
A lot of time on your own, but maybe who were some of those guys that maybe not necessarily took you under your wing, but sort of helped you once you did get to Winnipeg and sort of did teach you what the pro game was like, what it's like, being on your own after all the time in college? Just maybe who were some of the guys that sort of did help you out and get you sort of more familiar with that transition?
Yeah, definitely. Good question. I think there were a lot, to be honest with you, from the older guys all the way down to the younger guys. Jimmy Aligney, who has had some unfortunate injuries and wasn't able to play a lot, was really great for us young guys. We were able to ask him questions because since he wasn't playing too and stuff, we spent a lot of time around him. Christian Reichel was a guy that reached out to me a couple of times, which I really appreciated. Had some pretty good candid conversations, and he gave us a list of the accumulated restaurants in Winnipeg that are ones that the guys like to go to. So that was appreciated, especially with the extra time on your hand, like you mentioned. Jeff Malot's a guy that is really friendly, helps mix the guys in. I could go through the entire roster, to be honest with you. There's such a great people here. I was talking with one of the ushers after one of the games, and even he mentioned that it's kind of a theme that they only want good people in the Jets organization. So, and I noticed that right away. And so makes it give you a really good team and family feel. And I'm excited to be a part of that. And I felt very welcomed.
And Dylan, you're a Western Canadian kid. You're playing down in Minnesota. What's it? How familiar were you with Winnipeg before you got up here? And again, in your brief time here, what caught your eye maybe?
That was my first time in Winnipeg, to be honest with you. But one of my best friends here in Calgary is actually from Winnipeg and always talks about Winnipeg. So he was pretty excited when I told him I was going to be going to that city, and kind of gave me the ins and outs a little bit and some places to check out. But there's a lot of great restaurants is one of the things I noticed right away. Talking with a lot of people, they mentioned that that's a staple of the city and something that people like to take advantage of. So that was one thing. And outside of that, I mean, I was only there for 3 weeks, so I didn't get to check out the city a ton. It was kind of hotel to rink, back to hotel. So I'm excited to check out more of it and get to know more about what Winnipeg's all about.
So what's your summer look like coming up here? Is a lot of time in the gym, getting onto the ice, or kicking back a little bit, maybe a combo of all of them?
A combo of all three, I would say, yeah. I got back in the gym this week after about a week and a half off, just trying to take a bit of a mental break, and a lot of motivation going in the summer for sure. I know I was able to show a little bit of what I'm capable of in the last couple of weeks and the few games that I got, but definitely going to need to have a good camp and show the Jets what I'm capable of. So I'm very motivated this summer. I'll be working out a ton, trying to get stronger, continuing to fill out this frame. I was a late bloomer in terms of puberty and stuff, so I think I still got some room to get stronger and fill out. And then I'll probably hit the ice in June, build up through development camp, take a short break in July, and then hit the ice a ton in August and early September before camp. So outside of that, not going on really any vacations. Unfortunately, it would have been nice to get away, but it's nice to be home and spend some time with the family and friends, get some downtime outside of training. So
what was it like to pack up and say goodbye to college?
A little emotional for sure. They're there for 5 years, obviously. So learned a lot about myself as a person and a player while I was down there. So it was definitely emotional for sure. Saying goodbye to some really good friends too at college, some friendships you're going to treasure your whole life. So A little bit emotional, yeah. But my brother was able to fly to Winnipeg with me. Actually, we caught game 5 of the Jets Avalanche series, which is good experience. And then was able to drive down to St. Cloud, grab all my stuff, say goodbye to some people, and then my brother and I did the sort of cross country road trip back to Calgary. So.
Well, so then we're going to have to spring off of that. What was that like taking in the whiteout? Obviously, the result wasn't what folks in Winnipeg were going to want, but from your perspective, that opportunity from, does that create you obviously want to make the NHL, that's your goal. But
Yeah.
does that kind of give you a little extra boost when you see that emotion, that fan base you could be playing in front of?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see it on TV all the time. The whiteout is one of, if not the most special playoff atmospheres in all pro sports in North America, to be honest. So the fans are just so passionate here in Winnipeg. You want to play in a city where hockey's number one, and that's absolutely what it is there. So if I needed any more motivation, which I certainly didn't, that definitely gives another one.
Dylan, we know that you weren't here very long, but from the time that you were here, one of the things I've talked to, whether any of the defensemen, in terms of learning from each other. So like, Ville Heinola has a different skill set than Tyrell Bauer, than Simon Lundmark. You guys all have different things that you bring to the table. Kyle Capobianco obviously wins Defenseman of the Year this season. So from your perspective, just again, it was a brief period of time, but from a learning point of view, when you're on the ice with these guys, did you already find yourself picking things up that you're like, oh, hey, he does that way. That can help me improve my game?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a student of the game. I'm constantly trying to learn, try and get better. I'm watching just about every NHL playoff game, just trying to pick up things from different guys and how they have success and what they do in this situation, what they do in that situation. So that's absolutely one of the things I was doing. Obviously, you need to focus on yourself and preparing properly and your own performance while you're there. But particularly when, say, some of the games you're scratched, you're going to isolate a few of the players that you really respect their games and the way they do things. And those guys there were absolutely a couple of them. Capobianco and Heinola, both as left side puck moving defensemen. I was definitely kind of watching them closely, what they did in different situations, offensively, defensively, just how they handled themselves and just different ways they were able to generate offense and shut down the opposing teams' top players. So absolutely, without a doubt, I'm watching those guys, seeing what they're doing in different situations. And they were certainly impressive at certain times, and two guys that I'm sure are probably going to get a good look in the NHL next year.
All right, Dylan. Well, we appreciate your jumping on with us and spending some time here on this special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show as we're wrapping up the 23-24 season for the Manitoba Moose.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. And thanks for treating me so well throughout the couple weeks there, and looking forward to next year.
There he goes. Thanks, Dylan. Have a great summer. We'll see you. We'll talk to you very soon. You'll be talking to me, talking to Austin and Daniel very soon. You'll get more than your fill of us soon enough. But anyways, we appreciate it. Have a great summer.
Thanks, guys. You as well.
Okay, yeah, enjoy sunny Southeast Calgary.
Yeah, there he goes, Dylan Anhorn. Another, look, he's not young. He's 25 years old. Well, that's young relative to our terms, I guess. Maybe not the Goose, but Daniel, it's another young player who's going to get a good opportunity next season with. A Moose back end that we're not quite certain what it's going to look like. I mean, you talked about that with Mark Morrison, and he's a young player I keep saying young. He's not that young, but he's a young player in terms of pro experience, and he's going to get a big chance next season in terms of being part of that puck moving defense that the team seems to want.
Yeah, and especially on a team that or organization that there could be change in the air. There's certainly the possibility for a lot of movement between the two clubs or changes, or who knows how signings all work. Maybe there won't be a whole ton of changes, but there's opportunity there. And of course, an opportunity for Dylan to get into his first NHL full training camp and see what that's about and really experience that. So, you know what? We didn't get a whole ton of time to see what his skill set is all about in game, but certainly you can see that, yeah, he can move that puck. He can skate. He can create off the rush. He can jump up into the play like he did when he set up Carson Golder for his first AHL point, for Anhorn's first AHL point. And you know what? Anytime you can have a guy that can move the puck like that, it's exciting. So it'll be certainly interesting to see how he's able to contribute in his first AHL season.
All right. Well, let's head to a quick break. Daniel may need to plug in at this point. We're going to unplug ourselves, and we're going to let you guys hear some words from our sponsors.
Keeping Winnipeg laughing for over 30 years. Rumors, Canada's longest-running comedy club, bringing you the biggest laughs from the best comedians on the planet. Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the greats, and all the up-and-comers too. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends, or book your office or birthday party. Even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
Hey, Drew.
Ezzy, whoa, what a smile!
Yeah, I got my crowns done at Linden Market Dental Center, and they whiten my teeth.
I see.
They're so bright that every time I smile, they go...
We have hockey tonight. Do you have a mouth guard to protect those pearly whites?
I sure do.
Whoa, they even ting through the mouth guard.
Linden Market Dental Center covers all your dental needs, from restorative to cosmetic dentistry, and will fit you with a sports guard for that active lifestyle. 877 Waverly. See lindenmarketdental.com.
It's all over, folks, and the run has come to an end.
You'll be so far away.
A Canadian team hasn't won the Cup in over 30 years.
And the Cup will stay south of the border.
Maybe it's time we try something different. This playoff season, let's cheer with the fans we've always cheered against. Team up for the Cup at Boston Pizza.
Hey Winnipeg, Wendell Clark here. I'm coming out there May 28th for the Rady JCC dinner. Myself, Dougie Gilmore, Grant Fuhr. Some good storytelling about Winnipeg beating us up when we used to come there. See you there.
We did it again!
You're on fire, man.
There's power in a handshake after a great game or great deal. It shows professionalism and respect. Two qualities Zappia Group Realty take pride in. You don't build a business where 95% of your clients are referred by others without honesty, integrity, and total dedication to client satisfaction. To sell your home for more in less time, shake hands with Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Get started at zappiagroup.com.
Welcome back to this special edition of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show as we discuss the end of the 23-24 Manitoba Moose season. All right. It's the first hour went like this. You know, we spoke to head coach Mark Morrison, Tyrell Bauer, Dylan Anhorn, and there's a lot of excitement already. You can see it. Like the season just ended and these guys are already champing at the bit, ready to go, ready to play another full year here in Winnipeg. But at the same time, they'll have a summer of training before they get that opportunity. But you can just sense that there's a lot of, like I said, excitement from these guys who are in both their cases ready to, play pro. And well, now it's just you and me, Finker, but they're playing pro and they're, excited at the opportunity to continue to make an impact in this community.
Yeah, we're Goose and I are really bouncing around here. I think I have committed to my last move here of the show. We've been shuffling around a little bit, but yeah, it's exciting. Personally, I'm looking forward to a little bit more pool time before sitting by the pool this summer before getting back to hockey season. But you know what? You know that excitement is there, and especially for these guys, we were talking about opportunity before the break, and knowing that, you know what, every game that goes by is another chance for them to improve upon their game and to try and fight for that opportunity to achieve their dream of playing in the National Hockey League. And how can you not be excited and wanting to get right back to it and putting in the work to achieve those moments, to be there for those times, like we were talking about earlier in the show with Brad Lambert, Nikita Chibrikov getting told that they're going to play their first NHL game, or for Parker Ford getting that opportunity to go and be in the room, be a part of warm-ups and kind of get that experience. Everybody wants that. And we want to see them have that experience. So again, how could you not be excited about that prospect?
Well, I'm excited the prospect of bringing Austin Saragusa back into this chat because he's ready to go. We'll welcome Parker Ford to the chat. Actually, let's do that right now. Here he's ready to go. We're going to bring him in. Hey, Parker, how's it going?
Hey, guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. How's it going? How's your return home?
It was good. It was a pretty long drive for me. It's the furthest I've driven, but it's good to be back.
So let's just reflect. I mean, you joined the Moose late last season. You played, I think, 8 regular season games and 5 playoff games, and now you finished a 72 game season. So what was that like for you? Just playing, I mean, I think you have to go back to your USHL days for the last time you played, probably around 50 games. So getting into, I think, 72 games for you, or 70 or 72. I can't remember the exact number, but what was that like for you to play that many games as a pro?
Yeah, it was definitely the most games I've played, I think, in my career. So, I was happy I could stay healthy, and but yeah, I mean, I love the grind for sure. It's definitely tough to keep the body going, but no, I mean, it's a lot more better than college when you're only playing 35 games. So, it kind of keeps you in it more, and yeah, I mean, I had a blast.
Parker, just, you had such a good training camp with the Jets. You were one of the last cuts from Jets training camp. What kind of boost did that provide you? I know that, like I said, it's a long grinding season, but from your perspective, having the success you did in preseason games, and what kind of message did the organization tell you in terms of sending you down, but saying, hey, this is what you got to work on, but you made a good impression?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely helped with my confidence starting, my first full season. And I wasn't really sure what was happening that whole training camp. I just tried to keep a good attitude and, like you said, leave a good first impression. And I think that's what I did. And, a guy like me, undrafted player, you kind of have to put your foot in the door and do whatever it takes. And, I think I'm the type of guy that can help teams win. And, that's something I wanted to show the Jets organization and, of course, the Moose. So, that's something I want to continue to do. And, yeah.
And Parker, you played on a few different lines this season, 2 primarily, I guess, with starting out with Brad Lambert and Jeff Malott, and then getting linked up with Christian Reichel and Jeffrey Viel. It seemed each time you were able to bring something to that line. So how important is that for you to you were talking about making an impression just every time you get on the ice, whether it's with one group or another, about making something happen, about being being someone that can really just push your team forward?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say I was fortunate, and I got to play with some pretty great players here. With Brad and Jeff, there's a mix between young guy and old guy, and Jeff has a lot of experience, and he's also a great guy. And of course, you got Jeff and Christian. I think those guys really taught me a lot in my first year. I don't think there could be better guys to be surrounded by in your first year of pro hockey. And, just even like little things, they just coming to the rink, they're the first guys there. And, the way they treat you being a young player, it's, I don't know, it was really cool to be around. And, I'm sure everyone said this, but there's great guys in the locker room everywhere, and it made that transition to pro hockey that much easier with them.
We've kind of talked about it before, but what did you maybe notice about your game the most? I mean, this season, you played in a handful of games last year, but now to get a full season under your belt, maybe what was the biggest eye opener for you, and what can you take into the summer knowing what to expect next year coming into camp?
Yeah, I think something I learned along the year was almost that less is more. I'm a type of guy, I tend to sometimes maybe I'll try to do other guys' jobs, and once you're at the pro level, everyone's good. So you have to rely and have faith in your teammates, and that's something I think I slowly learned throughout the years, that sometimes when you can rely on your line mates and your teammates, it's better, and it kind of it's less of a burden on your shoulders almost. And I think even as a team, we kind of learned that once we got into the second half of the season. That's kind of what led to all those wins.
Parker, one of the things that you guys were able to do, you just talked about the second half of the season. You went through that swoon we'll call it that losing streak, but you turned it around. And a lot of teams may have just said, whatever, it is what it is. You guys set yourselves up with that goal of the playoffs from a team perspective, but also from an individual perspective. What did you learn? Because every person I've spoken to talked about that sort of gaining a growing experience, having been in that losing streak, but also being able to pull yourselves out of it and being able to clinch a playoff spot.
Yeah, I think that was pretty eye opening when, looking back when we weren't doing the best and we couldn't really win games. The coaching staff, they mentioned like we're not where we want to be, and they kind of showed us what we have to do to become a winning team. And I think what I learned, it was cool to see that process of going from maybe a not so great team to a winning team, and just the little things that have to change. And it's the winning culture, really. There's teams and organizations that win, and I think actually seeing that process of like guys buying in, maybe even guys doing different things they might not do normally to win a game, is there's a lot of like character development in the locker room, I'd say, on a person-to-person basis.
For yourself, as the season went on, it seemed like you really started to grab a hold of your offensive game, especially into the second half of the season. So for yourself, where did you see that development come from, and how were you able to kind of start to produce at a higher level?
Yeah, I think, a lot of it is, I analyze my game a lot. I, watch a good amount of video, and, I was seeing a lot of trends in my game. And there was, first couple games of the season, first half, I was seeing spaces on the ice where I thought I should have been, and I wasn't really getting there. And I think towards the end of the season, I started to get there a little bit better, and getting more pucks on net, small things like that. And just, I don't know if much really changed or if I maybe just got a little bit more lucky, but I think just analyzing some plays and just areas to kind of put yourself.
You obviously didn't get into the game where Brad Lambert and Nikita Chibrikov were called up there at Fordo, but what did it mean to know that you're on the coach's radar like that they've noticed the work that you've been putting in at the American League level, and, just to be right there? You obviously took warms, which must have been pretty cool still at the end of the day, but just to know that the work you're putting in is being noticed, what did that mean to you?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Obviously you'd like to get in the game there and, show the big club what you have. But, I kind of talked about it at the end of the year. It was pretty cool to see Brad and Chibi go out there and have so much success because, not playing in the NHL before, it's kind of, it's cool to see guys that have success, because not only do you want them to have success, but personally it shows you that you're right there, and like small things can change. You can be right there playing for the big club. So it's obviously that's the dream, to be there, and you just gotta put your foot forward and do everything you can to get there.
Well, Parker, you finished your first year here in Winnipeg, your first full season, I should say, here in Winnipeg. So what'd you learn about Winnipeg off the ice? Did you hear it? Did we lose you, or are you still there? We may have lost Parker. All right. Daniel, you're
Sorry,
muted.
I'm having trouble hearing you guys.
That's okay. Can you hear us now, or are you still okay? Yeah. No, I was just asking you, Parker, what was it like being, your first full season here in Winnipeg? So what did you learn about the city, the province off the ice?
Yeah, I'd say the people were pretty cool. I obviously hear Canadian people are nice and all that, but I just going out around the city and meeting new people, and sometimes you run into someone who might know you or have been to a couple games, and your neighbors, like, you find out that they're hockey fans, and the hockey world is pretty cool. It's a tight group, and yeah, I thought it was cool to be somewhere where you might not know everyone, but they might know you, and just kind of being out there meeting new people.
And now, Parker, as you look towards next season, maybe a little early to get into it, but since we've got you here, I mean, what's exciting to you about getting into your second camp with the Winnipeg Jets? I mean, Dave was talking about the success that you had at the beginning of this season. So now with a full season of pro hockey under your belt, I mean, what do you expect from yourself going into that?
Yeah, I'm pretty fired up already, to be honest. I don't like a big long off season, so it's unfortunate we're not still playing, but yeah, I mean, I'm fired up. I love the summer workout feeling, because it's just so much anticipation leading up to the beginning of the season. Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to get back there, and there's that time you get to meet all your new teammates and all that. Yeah, I can't really say much other than just fired up.
All right. Well, we'll let you stay fired up, and we appreciate you joining us on this end of season roundtable. Thanks, Parker.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. Good to see you.
All right. There he goes. That's Parker Ford. He'll be returning to Winnipeg for next season, and he'll be champing at the bit like everybody else to get this season going, but he's going to have a long summer, and that's okay. We enjoy summer here in Winnipeg, so that's not necessarily such a bad thing, is it, boys?
Well, I do appreciate the pool time. We do like playing into June. So,
by the way, is it pouring? Is it pouring in somebody
else?
It's
pouring here in Osborne Village. Like, it's
okay. Because I was gonna say I'm looking at behind Daniel. It looks clear. He's downtown Winnipeg.
No, it's raining.
Oh, is it? Okay. I thought I could hear it. I wasn't sure if it was in Rhode Island where Parker is, or if it was raining here for us. But
no, it's crazy outside here. It's cats and dogs outside. That's for sure.
All right. Well, it's a good thing that Austin's home. I'm home. Daniel, unfortunately, has to get back home eventually, but we still got GM Craig Heisinger joining us in about 15 minutes. So let's just spend the next 15 minutes kind of recapping some more thoughts on the 23-24 season for these Manitoba Moose. I mean, it's funny. Like, you just hear the energy from a lot of these players, right, guys? Like, the idea of they feel almost like there's a little unfinished, especially because this team worked so hard to get to that playoff spot. And nobody was closer than you guys in terms of, I mean, I obviously am around the team, but I don't work for the team like you two. So from your perspective, what was it like to see this team kind of do what they were able to do in terms of they're battling every single day to, pull themselves out of that, that swoon that they were in? I think it was, when Ville Heinola joined the team, it was, I think, January 13th, and that was the 6th in Laval, and that was at the 6-game losing streak mark. And they, of course, lost 5 more after that, but then turned things around and we're picking up wins like nobody's business. So from your perspective, just seeing what this team, how they didn't turn on each other like Mark Morrison talked about, and continue to kind of support each other to get out of it.
Yeah, I think it was January 27th in Rockford when they snapped that streak. And you know what? Coming downstairs after that game, and there was the sense of, it was like a weight had been lifted off of the collective group. I mean, everybody had done a good job of keeping things light, but it's always tough when you're caught in any sort of losing streak, much less one that goes on for a while. But how everything just seemed to change for the team that night. They were feeling good about themselves. And then I think almost as important, they went out the next game and then they won that one. And then they won another one, right? So it wasn't just, okay, they won one and then they lost a couple and they're still kind of in the doldrums. No, they put together a little streak. They put together a really strong road trip. And then they put together a second strong road trip, ended up with that great, I think, winning 6 of 9 games on that swing of 9 straight away from home, and just turned their season around through that. I think that was really interesting to watch. And it's funny how you see teams go on long winning streaks and then kind of fall on the wrong side of it for a little bit, kind of for the opposite reasons that Mark Morrison was talking about, where when you're losing, you're trying to get better and trying to improve every single time out. And then maybe if you're winning, you're starting to feel a little bit comfortable with yourselves and get off track. So it was really cool to watch this team kind of turn things around, get rolling in the right direction. And then, it's certainly an interesting case study to kind of be a part of and to watch for at close distance and see how everybody kind of handles it differently. And I think that players, whether they were veterans or young guys, learned a lot from the experience.
And Austin, from your perspective, in terms of we've talked about it, and I know a lot of Jets fans who watch this show or listen to the podcast after will be curious in terms of like the growth, right? And we talk about it. Mark Morrison kind of hit on it, but from your perspective, what did you see? And it doesn't have to be one specific player. I mean, there's so many. That's the problem. It's funny. We do this show for 2 hours. We could probably do it for 3-4 because there's so many different stories, right? Like Henry Nikkanen not scoring for what was it, 35 games, Daniel? Like it was a big, and then all of a sudden going on that run. You know, you've got Christian Reichel. He himself went on I think it was like 20 something games where he didn't score and then threw the monkey off his back and then just went on a crazy run. So there's so many different stories that we could spend these, hours, 2 hours, we could fill those up quickly. But just from your point of view, in terms of some of the prospects and their kind of growth from day one to the final day of the regular or the playoffs, I should say, what did you see in terms of that sort of growth, and whether it's on the ice or off the ice?
Yeah, I mean, it really is one of the, if not the best developmental leagues in the world, right? I mean, that's what the American Hockey League is for. It's for generating the next talent of National League players for the Winnipeg Jets, and for other teams around the National League. So, I mean, you did see a lot of that, a lot of guys growing up on and off the ice. And that's huge. And again, I said it right off the top of the show, but it starts with that leadership group that the Moose have. The Jimmy Olneys, the Jeff Malotts, the guys who've been here for a number of years. It just sort of gets them climatized to what life is like in the pro game and just sort of gets them ready for whatever that next step is in their pro careers. So, yeah, I mean, we saw a lot of it with guys on the road, just learning what it's like to be, whether it be living on your own, living on the road, just stuff like that. But, yeah, there was a lot of that sort of stuff. And, it's good to see that sort of growth and get guys ready for whatever the next level of hockey may be for them.
Well, Daniel,
sorry, Dave. One of the other fun things this season was second half of the season. It seemed like every other game, somebody was hitting some sort of milestone, whether it was a career milestone or a team record book as they would climb up leaderboards. Jeff Malott moving up the rankings for goals, and Christian Reichel getting way up there for games played. Billy Hainla moving up the list for defensemen or points by defensemen, and Brad Lambert trying to set some new marks on the rookie side of things, ended up second in franchise history in rookie scoring. That was a lot of fun, and to see those players achieve those moments and those milestones, and then moving on to even league recognition, like Brad Lambert being on the all-rookie team and Kyle Capobianco being a first-team All-Star and capturing the Eddie Shore Award for the second time in franchise history that a Moose defenseman has done that. Second time they've had 54 points to do that, but it was those personal accomplishments alongside the team success that I think also added to that second half being so much fun.
And I think it's that what crystallizes this team. And again, I wasn't in Milwaukee when the news came down that they were recalling Brad Lambert, Parker Ford, and Nikita Chibrikov, but it was just the attitude, because again, this is a team game, but it's an individual game. All these guys want to be the guy who's getting that recall, who's getting their first NHL game, and yet this team collectively. And again, this is just, I'm repeating the stories that I've heard from, folks who were there, just collectively how happy this group was. And that seems to be very impactful in terms of, organizationally. And you hear it, like I said, you hear it from guys who have only been in Manitoba for 3 weeks, like Dylan Anhorn. He picked that up, right? He understands that sort of resonates with him. So I just think it's just an interesting sort of dynamic, and it's just, again, it's part of that culture, and it, like, you're seeing results, Daniel, right? You just mentioned it. We talked about all the guys who had career years, and so from that perspective, again, organizationally, would the Moose rather be playing right now in the Calder Cup playoffs? Of course they would, and you guys you'd be rather calling those games, Daniel, and Austin would rather be doing post game interviews and creating digital videos for the website. So I'm just saying, like, you guys obviously would rather have that be your sort of right now what you're doing. But I'm just saying that from that individual perspective, you still see that these guys have all a number of players. And again, it's not just the prospects, but players across the board have all had success.
Got to unmute myself. Yeah, and I think talking to Craig Heisinger, we had a chance, and we'll get him up here pretty soon, I believe. But when we were kind of having our playoff chat for one of the broadcasts, he talked about this season being a very important one development wise for a number of players. So in that respect, I think we'll leave it to the general manager to confirm, but a lot of the missions for the Moose this season were accomplished. They didn't have the success in the postseason that they wanted, but through the 72-game regular season, despite the ups and the downs, they certainly did succeed in seeing guys like Nikita Chibrikov and Brad Lambert and Parker Ford take those steps, helping Ville Heinola get back to a place after his injury where he was competing night in and night out at a high level, and seeing a guy like Kyle Capobianco ascended to being a top guy in the AHL, and guys like Christian Reichel, Jeffrey Viel enjoying career seasons like you were saying. So that development mission for the Moose in a lot of ways succeeded, despite some of the early struggles. The team fought through it, and that's something that players need to learn how to deal with. Brad Lambert produced a ton at the beginning of the season, found himself kind of struggling to do that at parts during the middle point of the season, fought through it, and then got hot again at the end of the season. So certainly a lot of those missions accomplished for the Moose, and that's exactly what you want to see.
Well, all I want to see is a stable internet because, Austin, with all this rain, hopefully it's not going to derail this show for the final 25 minutes, but we'll keep chugging along and seeing, making sure that we can bring the folks the end of season Moose Roundtable, which they've come to enjoy the last few years here with Illegal Curve and in conjunction with the Manitoba Moose. Yeah, and one of the things also is the impact in the community. And maybe Daniel, you can, or Austin, either one of you guys can really speak to how impactful the Moose are. I think even more so than the Winnipeg Jets in terms of whether it's a silo mission, whether it's going to do the reading program with schools, just the impact this team has in the community. Maybe one of you guys can speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I look back on the days of when I was a former news reporter in the city, and I always remember the days of the Moose going out to whether, like you said, Siloam or Saint Amant or anywhere else throughout the city. That's a big thing for the Moose, right? I mean, we love being a part of the community. We love being engraved in that community, and of course, next season we're celebrating our 25th year here in Manitoba, and I mean, you look back on all the memories we made over 25 years here in the city, and it's been fantastic. So, yeah, I mean, we try to pride ourselves in being that grassroots sort of team for Manitoba and young fans here in the city. And it's always really special when we are able to get out into the city or into the communities and sort of I don't know, just be a part of it. You know what I mean? It's always so special for us, and it's really special for the players too when they're able to get back.
Daniel, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it really is whether it's True North Sports and Entertainment, whether it's the Moose, whether it's the Jets, whether it's teams across the AHL. I mean, you look at how important to their communities many of these sports teams are, and it's that connection that really drives us. It's that ability to look people in the eye and shake some hands. Thank goodness we can do that now that a few years removed from COVID. But I think like when you go to those moments with players signing autographs on the concourse after games, or getting a chance to meet with fans, whether it's a backyard rink or spending time, like Goose was saying, at Siloam Mission. Those are important moments, important times of connection, and that's what draws the fans to the game. It connects players to the city that they're playing in, make sure that hockey can kind of be insulating sometimes. You're at home, you're at the rink, you're traveling, and to have that opportunity to get away from the rink and then make those connections with the people that ostensibly you're playing for, it's so valuable. And then on top of that, to have the ability to give back, because like Goose was saying, I realize I'm just reiterating a lot of the points here, but we're very lucky, Goose and I, to be able to do what we do. And players realize that they're very privileged to be able to play a sport for a living. And what comes with that is an expectation, and that you're going to be able to give back to your community. And it's not an obligation for these players. They want to do it. They want to be involved. They want to take that time because they know how lucky they are, and they want to pass some of that back, and they enjoy that aspect. So it's always a great opportunity for the guys to chat with or to spend time with the players or spend time with fans.
Well, and more importantly, well, not more importantly, but interestingly, this was probably the warmest backyard rink in the all the years you guys have been doing it. Of course, I missed it. I was out of town, but I think it was, what was it, Austin? Like +1 in the at the rink when you guys were doing this one this year. So unlike the -20 when we did it out in West St. Paul, or minus in Elmwood, we did it, I think it was -25. There's been some cold ones, but that was particularly, I believe, probably one of the warmest ones you guys have done.
Yeah, those may have been before my time, Dave, but this one in Starbuck, it was warm, but it was definitely a little windy. But I mean, that was such a treat of an event to go out to Starbuck with some guys like Ashton Sautner and Dean Stewart, Dawson Bartow, who of course is also a proud Manitoba kid as well. But yeah, what an event that was to be able to skate with a handful of, kids and adults too, just to sort of, test out the new rink that this family built in their backyard. And then what an amazing garage these people had built as well. I mean, they had some unbelievable classic Manitoba Moose flags from the 1.0 days and Winnipeg Jets flags as well. I mean, it was super cool experience for our players too, just to sort of see how passionate this community is as well, and sort of see how cool and how long some of these, fans have been fans of this organization and of this team. So yeah, it was really cool. It was a really interesting experience for all these guys. Like I said, they had out of Starbucks. Maybe some of these guys haven't been past the Winnipeg border before, but for them to experience that was a treat. And it was, it was pretty nice. Though, like I said, a little bit windy, but all in all, still a really great time out in Starbucks for sure.
See, that's what happens when you just look at the temperature, Austin. I wasn't checking out the full.
Hey, as the camera guy who was out there, I'll tell you for sure, it was definitely pretty breezy. Absolutely.
But I mean, I think that to me is all about why the Moose are so impactful in this community, and why it's, interesting to cover them, is because, like Daniel was touching on when he was just speaking about it, just that the connection that they make. And, there's so much more of that sort of, again, that ability to, it's not, they're on pedestals. There's no question about it, that the players are still kind of well regarded by folks in the community, but it's just that they're more accessible. And again, like I said, I think that creates sort of a passion, and it helps, like I said, connect folks to the Moose. And look, I see it because we give away in the illegal curve zone almost every single game. I think we did, well, I don't know how many games we did this year, but it must have been at least like 33, 34 games that we gave tickets away. Yeah. And I can tell you, every time I did it, within like 20 minutes, and more often than not, it was within 5 minutes, I'd have people asking me for the ability to go see those games. And I think it just creates an opportunity for fans to kind of get that opportunity to be up close and see pro hockey, and something they may miss, otherwise. So, all right, well, let's kind of end this show somewhat. We still got 20 minutes to go, but we'll bring in the GM of the Manitoba Moose, Craig Huizinga, to the show, and we'll end things with Zinger. Hi, Zinger.
You guys are late.
Well, I was waiting. I was ready to go. That's on the Moose folks. But how you doing? How's your how are things going?
Oh, they're going.
Well, I know you'd rather be covering, watching the Moose play hockey than talking to us right now. But from your perspective as the GM of the Manitoba Moose, how did you see the 23-24 season and the growth of your players?
I thought it was I thought some guys improved. I thought our team got better. I guess it's all how you define. If you define success in winning and losing, I guess it was probably unsuccessful. Although I think it took a lot of good coaching and buying by the players after January to fight our way back in. And I think those games were very valuable from February on, because every game was an important game. You had to show up to play to win. And I thought for the most part, guys improved, whether they were NHL prospects or American League sort of depth contracts. I thought for the most part, somewhat fulfilling, despite the sort of lack of success in the playoffs. And I'm not sure if it was reasonable to expect a lot of success or not.
Zinger, when you look at this team, it seemed like a lot of players, even just beyond some of the younger guys, were able to take a step. You had plenty of players set new career highs, and then on top of that, you had those rookies take those steps and be big contributors. So what did you see as guys kind of took that next step and maybe took on bigger roles than they had in the past?
Yeah, I think we have career year that's pretty much based on opportunity. There's no chance to have career years if you don't get opportunity. So a guy like Jeffrey VL got, he earned opportunity. He certainly didn't earn it right at the start, but he certainly earned it by the midway point and in the second half of the year. Christian Reichel clearly had his best season as a pro points wise. He's always been a key contributor and a key member of the group, and has found his way, to be a depth NHL player, and parlayed that into a really good contract in Europe, which is the goal for lots of players, especially in the DEL. And he's got a German passport that's very lucrative to him. That as Dave Minuk would like to say, certainly not I'm not even sure of the right word. I wish I could come up with a better word, but an identity line. It's not exactly a new term, but VL, Reichel, and Ford certainly provided that. And we've had that the last couple of years. Actually, I think every team probably has to have a line that you can go to and count on. And we might have had two, because Malott, Lambert, and Fallaby were pretty consistent as well. When Axel was here and when he wasn't, Malott and Lambert were pretty consistent in their games throughout the year.
Zing, you kind of mentioned it, but what can you say about the season that Christian Reichel had? I mean, if you look at his development, obviously, he's a guy who you picked out a Red Deer to go on an AHL Moose contract, to his first NHL contract, to his first NHL goal, to being named MVP of the Manitoba Moose this year. What can you say about his development overall and what he's meant to this team, and what kind of feather that is in the cap of yourself as well, obviously being able to find a guy like Reichs like this?
Well, it's not a feather in my cap. To tell you the truth, I planned on trading him this year in the first 10 games when he didn't have a point. And that's the truth. I told him that, and I told it to him out of respect, because I thought he needed to change the scenery. I thought he'd been here too long, that we needed to provide him an opportunity to have success. And so for him to become the MVP of the team is a feather in his hat. He persevered and found his way through it. I mean, he's got years under his belt, experience. You'll learn from experience, but he took advantage of the situation provided to him. I mean, I think he'd give his line mates lots of credit. I think VL and Ford were good complementary players for Reichs, and he drove the line, and that's a credit to him. Like I said, he's a pro. I mean, he grew up in the game. He learned from his dad, and coaches did a good job nurturing him here.
I think I want to ask you about Thomas Milic. He was part of that big turnaround that you spoke about, 2023 fifth rounder. From your perspective, the growth that you saw, I mean, obviously going down to the ECHL was significant for him. He's talked about how impactful that was for him. But from your perspective, what did you see in terms of the growth in your young goaltender?
Well, I think I saw what everybody else saw. Like, we needed to make a change at that position. When we lost those games, I'm not looking to throw anybody under the bus, but we weren't playing that badly. There was games when we had 3-goal and 4-goal leads in the third period. and late in games, and we're losing in regulation. We needed above average goaltending. No team wins a game without above average goaltending. Just, it doesn't happen. Anybody that says you only win because of your goalie, well, the other side of it is you lose because of your goalie too. Like they're part of the team too. Their gear is not supposed to be new at the end of the game. I'm a big believer in the East Coast League for all players. I think it's a very valuable tool. I think it's, not seen the way it should be. And Thomas, to his credit, and it's a great league for goaltenders, but it's a good league for everybody. But that's part of your development, going down there, learning how to play, learning to be a pro. It's a totally different game than junior. The gap is huge for anybody, from junior to the East Coast League, from college to the East Coast League. And anybody that thinks it's not doesn't watch the games. That's just a fact. So it was big, but he came up and he took the bull by the horns right away. And I'm not sure we had an exact plan in place when we brought him up, other than to start him for 5 of the next 7 games and see where it went. But he took advantage of that. And I mean, our season was on a string there. We'd lost 10 out of 11. We were going on a 7 or 9 game road trip. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it looked like it was over, and we went 5-1-1 on that road trip and resurrected ourselves. And he was a big part of that. There's just no taking that away, but it resonated through our whole group.
Well, you mentioned the ECHL, and the Norfolk Admirals just saw their season come to an end recently. But in the first year of that partnership, how did it play out for your club here? Especially, it seemed like there were a lot of players kind of moving in between the two clubs and having an impact either way.
Yeah, I thought it worked out really well. I thought it worked out surprisingly well. Not exactly a great location for us geographically, but coaching wise, all those things, I thought it worked out. I thought it worked out really well. Our players got opportunity, but our players got opportunity because they were good players there. I think they helped them win. I think the Norfolk benefited from the goaltending, the Millets for the first half, Salmonen for the second half. Certainly the forwards that were there, when they were there, Golder was a big factor and a contributor for him. Mark Lewinsky forces teams to play or forces teams to pay attention to him versus the game at hand. There's not a lot of guys like Mark Lewinsky left in the game. A guy that gets, 15 goals, 15 assists, and 320 minutes in penalties. Like, call me old school, but I still like that, Thomas Caron played well down there. So, I think it was a good partnership. We haven't had a primary affiliate in quite some time since COVID. I think they had a good year on and off the ice, and I think we contributed to that. But I also think they contributed to our success because when guys came up, they played well.
Zing, I feel like I'm always the guy who's asking about the history of the Moose in these shows, but next year is obviously 25 years of Moose hockey in Winnipeg here. What can you say about what the Moose have meant to this city and I guess the success of the National League team overall? Because we've seen so many players continue to graduate and make that next step to the National League level. You saw 2 this year in Brad and Nikita, but what can you say about what Moose hockey's meant to the city and what it will continue to mean for the future here?
Well, I don't think my opinion's relevant there, because I've been at it the longest out of the group, and I think you'd have to ask outside people that, and I don't, and in saying that, I don't think the outside person truly understands what Moose hockey has meant to this city. Like, one thing I can tell you unequivocally, and I'll go to my grave saying it, is there's no Jets 2.0 without the Manitoba Moose 1.0, and that's just a fact. And anybody that thinks differently is naive, and you can take that to the bank. But the success or failure of the team can't always be measured on winning and losing, especially in 2.0. It clearly was in 1.0. I mean, it was basically Manitoba, Chicago, and Hershey, and you competed and you paid the most money for the best players you could get, and you went head to head year over year. Now it's about making sure your young players play, and in those 1.0 days, we may have very well did Vancouver a disservice by not playing some of their guys. On the other side of it, they came out of it with some pretty good players, Moose players on their own, like guys that played long time for them: Alex Burrows, Kevin Bieksa, Rick Rippon, guys that had a factor, an impact on their franchise. So it was, I think the way I'm pretty passionate, next to myself and Mike Keane, probably the two most passionate people in the city and the province about the effect that the Manitoba Moose has had on the province and the Winnipeg Jets 2.0.
Zinger, I want to ask you, in terms of impact, what do you think it does for young players when they get that opportunity to come after the end of a junior season or the end of a college career like Dylan Anhorn, to just get a chance to be up with the organization, whether it's for, a month or 3 weeks, whatever it's going to be, get into some games and kind of understand a little bit about what the culture's like in Manitoba?
Yeah, I think it's got nothing to do with culture. No disrespect to the question. It's got all to do with the games and how tough it is and what the gap is. Because you truly don't know until you get out there. And I think that's the biggest eye opener. I mean, Colby Barlow's going to be a good player, but he had trouble separating himself when he had the puck on his stick, and that was the biggest surprise for him in his exit meeting. Those were his words, not mine. And I think if you pass up on that opportunity, it's a terrible mistake. And I don't think we've had a lot of guys pass up on that opportunity, but we've had a few. But the one that jumps out at me the most, I mean, this is going back, but in Moose 1.0 days, I remember where Corey Schneider chose not to come here when his college season was over, and he had exactly 0 wins at Christmas time the following season, and we were handpicking his starts. 0 wins. So the experience of at least getting into a couple of games, getting to know the dressing room, the trainers, who'd ask for what, so you don't have to worry about it. They seem like simple things, but when you're a young player, you got a lot to worry about just surviving the game without the simple things and just knowing where to, who'd ask for this and where the post-game meal is and where the pre-game meal is. Like, come see it, see what you're in for the following year, and come back prepared because you know what you're in for.
Zinger, it was a tough year again for your captain, Jimmy Olenek, because of, injury that cost him this season. But I guess one of the, not really a positive, but one of the things that happened was that he spent time with other guys who were dealing with injury in Chaz Lucius and Danny Zhilkin. From your perspective, keeping those guys around, keeping them, even though they're, their first full year pros, tough that they end due to injury. I know Zhilkin played more games than Lucius, but was there a value at least to be able to keep them in Winnipeg, keep them with the team, and kind of have that growth, even if it's coming off the ice?
I don't think there's any choice but to keep them here. They all need to learn to rehab properly. I think the real benefit for guys like Zhilkin and Lucius was to rehab around a guy like Jimmy Olenek, who's done it, unfortunately, 2 times the last 2 years. But one of the biggest differences from year 1 to year 2 as a pro is understanding what the level of fitness and conditioning is. There's 3 or 4 phases. There's junior conditioning, there's East Coast League conditioning, there's conditioning that allows you to play in the American League and then to play in the NHL. And they're not all the same. They're not even close to the same. So I think the biggest mistake you can make is, send an injured player home and have them away from the team. You get paid to play. When you get injured, you get paid to rehab, so you're ready as soon as possible. And that gets done under the guidance and under the roof of your employer.
Well, you're the GM of this team. Let's end it with this one. But just in terms of your overall satisfaction, I'm not going to ask you about specific players, but just in terms of your satisfaction with the growth of the group and the development of the Jets prospects, how satisfied are you now that the season has come to an end?
Yeah, I think there was lots of positives there. I think you guys alluded to some. Obviously, Lambert probably benefited as much more from last year's failure than this year's success, because it was a hard year for him last year. And that's why it's valuable. He was going to come in and light it up 1 year out of junior, and that didn't happen. It's hard to play as a 19-year-old, really hard to play. The league's hard. You're playing against men. It's tough. It's fast. So those guys, and I don't mind using names so much. I mean, I think Ford's a college player, so he's older, but he improved as the year went on. One of the things that was important was to give the young players some veteran guys to help them with. I think a little bit of the problem was it's tough to have all young centers and veteran wingers. That usually doesn't work that good, and I'm not saying it did work great. But Brad Lambert, for a young player, was a difference maker in the American League, and that's a credit to him. Won some league-wide awards, and he proved his toughness, both on and off the ice. Chibrikov, the same thing. Unfortunately, Billy wound up back with the Moose most of the year after having a terrific training camp, but got himself back going and set himself up for hopefully a good training camp next year with the Jets and finding a mark. I mean, I think Simon Lundmark finally, after 2 years, established himself as a legitimate American League top 4D. He's got to make that next step. Tyrell Bauer, same thing. Ty's an impactful player because, much like Lewinsky, he's got an old school mentality. And there's obviously some guidance there. I mean, I don't think you can undersell the veteran presence of a guy like, as much as Capobianco got lots of league-wide recognition, internally, he's good with the young players. And nobody's better with the young guys than Ashton Sotner. Who's ever struggling goes with Ashton Sotner, and their game gets turned around. So a real credit to him. But I thought our back end by the end of the year was really, really good. And credit to a guy like Dawson Bartuo, who started the year on a two-way and played the last 45 games and really played well for us. All but established himself as a regular American League player and a good one.
Well, we appreciate you spending some time here with us, breaking down the 23-24 Manitoba Moose season. Thanks a lot, Zinger.
Hey, Dave, and it'd be go without saying if I didn't thank you like I do every year for your coverage of the Moose. You're the most diligent guy. You're at every game and every practice, and there's lots of guys that have an opinion on the Moose players that don't come to a game or a practice. You're at every one, so thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Zinger. Well, you have a good summer, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, there he goes. There is the what? Not too soon. he came in at the end with the not too soon. Okay, well that's okay. We won't. We had him for 25 minutes, so we won't expect him to chat with the media anytime soon. Isn't that right?
Yeah, we talked him out here today, so that's good. He gets the lead into playoffs, epic 2 intermission interview with me, and then he takes care of the end of season roundtable with you here, and there we go, perfect lead into the summer.
Well, there you go, and look, it's been another great season, 9th season here covering Manitoba Moose hockey on illegalcurve.com. Daniel does a great job with the play-by-play and communications, and Austin, of course, does a million and other things. And I could, Austin, I want to list them off because you got all these different titles, but I just know that you're doing the interviews after the game. You're doing a lot of social media stuff. So, and of course, got to give Anthony a shout out. He's not on the show with us. He was almost ready to make his debut. That might be the 24-25 recap, but we got to give Anthony a big shout out for everything he does. He facilitates everything for us, during games, after games. So big shout out to Anthony as well.
Big happy birthday to him too. It's a big day.
Oh yeah.
Whoa. Fusco Nation is celebrating a birthday.
Fusco Nation has a big day today for sure.
All right. Well, happy birthday to Anthony. Yeah. To Anthony, Fusco Nation, adding another year around the globe. And we wish him many, many more. And hopefully many more for you guys. You guys have great summers. Any final thoughts, Austin? We'll start with you in terms of your recapping of the 23-24 season.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, it was a big year of growth for a lot of players who played their first. Fusco. Love you, Nate. Hope you have a great birthday. But no, like I said, what a great year for the Moose overall. Winnipeg having a great year of development. You know, a lot of learning, a lot of new experiences for a lot of the guys. But that'll just be so great for them coming back next year. And we're looking forward to a really exciting season of 25 years of Moose hockey in Manitoba. It should be a really exciting one.
Hold on, Daniel, before you get in with your thought, does that mean, Austin, should we be priming for some sort of specialty Moose jersey with a 25 on the shoulder or something?
I'm not going to commit to anything, but it's like I said, 25 years is a big year. So we should be expecting some sort of celebration of some sort for sure.
Okay. Well, something to look forward to. Daniel, your thoughts on the, to recap the 23-24 season.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. It always is. And as I said, to kind of close out our final broadcast of the season, every year is so special because it's completely unique.
Mm-hmm.
Things change, players change, coaches change, staff change, fans change, and every season has its own fingerprint, and there'll never be another one like it. And it's so that makes it really special. And so it's really nice for us to be able to kind of help tell that story and go along for that ride with whether it's the players and the staff or the fans. And that's always just a blast. So it was a lot of fun. It was a very interesting season at times, and definitely the one that we'll look back on in the years to come. So I appreciate everybody coming along for that ride, following along with us online, listening to broadcasts, and of course, coming to games to support the team. We had some unbelievable atmospheres at games this season, and that was a lot of fun. And you know what? We appreciate it so much. Whether you're a fan, a parent who's following along, a family member, or a sponsor, a partner of the organization, we really appreciate that. We appreciate you. And yeah, really looking forward to that 25th season. The 20th season was an absolute blast. So 25 should be just that much better. And as I always sign off with, remember, you can get your packages for Moose Hockey next season at moosehockey.com. And it's going to be a great season. We look forward to having you at Canada Life Center for it.
Well, I will say, though, I can't believe we've gone 2 hours and 5 minutes, and none of us have mentioned the Christmas video. So, I mean, I don't think we have, at least, but, you know, that's definitely something that was I can't not mention it because it was pretty hilarious. I mean, I had to watch it 3,000 times in the arena at every Moose game. I'd be there early, of course, before the game began. I'd watch it on the thing. Then during the intermissions, I watch it again. But pretty funny one, you guys. I got to give you guys your credit. You do a real good job with those Christmas videos. Players also, obviously, you have to get buy-in from them. And I know, Daniel, they all bought in this year.
I got to give a big shout out to my boss here first, Finker. I mean, Colin Peterson did an amazing job of the script, the area to shoot us in, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, Jeff Malott obviously had to have a big buy-in on this, and he did such a fantastic job hosting the Christmas party, if you will, at his place. So, what an amazing video. We've had some pretty fun ones, like the one we shot at the Burt, maybe Moosey we shot during the COVID year. But Buddy the Elf's also a strong one that sticks out to me. We had a lot of fun ones, but this one was
What was the kitchen one?
What's that, sorry?
Baking. Oh, that's a classic. Baking in the kitchen with Baker and Kitchen.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's a real throwback. No,
yeah.
I mean, they were so much fun, but a big credit to Colin for organizing that one together too, for sure.
Yeah. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Colin Peterson on this broadcast. Colin, of course, does so much behind the scenes at Moose games, and you may not be. Look, there's a million people that I could mention, and I don't want to leave anybody out, so I'm not going to try and isolate too many, but there really are. I'm going to mention Jonathan Kozub and Ada, the photographers, the Moose photographers. They do a great job taking photos of the games. And of course, got to give a shout out to security guard Perry. But again, like I said,
Raquel. Let's shout Raquel out if we're shouting.
There's a lot of shout outs going on. So we got to shout out Raquel Payne, who handles our marketing and kind of keeps us in line or sends us off in completely different directions. And you know what? There's a lot of work that gets put in starting now. We're having meetings for next season. So regular season comes to a close, and regardless of if you're still playing into May or if you're not in the playoffs anymore, the planning for 24-25 is fully underway. So there's a great staff here with the Moose and True North that put in a lot of work. So it should be a lot of fun. It's got some great ideas, some interesting ideas floating around for Christmas videos and otherwise. And so it's a great staff that we get to work with over here, and truly is one of the best things about working in this industry.
Well, and like I said, in the NHL, I cover the Jets. In the AHL, I cover the Moose, and you guys have all made it very easy to work every single day covering this team and facilitating things for me. So I thank you very much. It provides a lot of good content here on illegalcurve.com, and of course on our Illegal Curve YouTube channel for folks who want to get caught up with the Jets players and Jets prospects, I should say, and AHL players and the everything to do with AHL hockey here in Manitoba. So again, if you do want to get tickets to the Moose, head over to moosehockey.com. I'm going to do a sales plug, even though I don't work for the team. I'll do a sales plug for you guys. Got to keep the IC seats relevant. I don't want to lose that option to be able to give that away for next year. But like I said, hey, we'll still be doing some Moose coverage as the summer goes on. We'll have our this season will end in the Illegal Curve zone. We'll be done, of course, at the end of July after development camp, maybe a couple weeks after that. And then in August, late July, August, we'll kick off some summer series just to catch up with players and prospects, which, of course, these two guys help facilitate, as well as Anthony. So anyways, like I said, all thanks, guys, for another good season covering hockey, whether it was me being able to join Daniel in the booth. Although I didn't join you very much this year, Daniel. There's probably one of the most infrequent times I was in the booth with you. But when I did join you, it was fun. And like I said, I appreciate all the folks who are either joining us live or listening on the podcast. This has been a special edition of Illegal Curve Hockey, the Manitoba Moose 23-24 roundtable. Austin Siragusa, Daniel Fink. I'm Dave Minuk. Thanks very much for joining us, and we'll talk to you. Well, I'll be talking to you on Saturday, the Illegal Curve Hockey Show. Join us 9:00 in the morning for 2 hours of Jets talk. Maybe I'll sneak in a little Moose talk as well. For now, enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast from Illegal Curve Hockey. For more great Illegal Curve content, subscribe to the Illegal Curve YouTube channel, follow @Illegal Curve on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and visit your online home for hockey in Winnipeg, illegalcurve.com.